Fortunately, this one has tried to eat this one. Possibly the biggest nylock nut I've ever seen. That's a whopper. Bloody hell. How much force is that putting on then? It is massive, isn't it? Absolutely huge. So you've seen in one of our last videos, we were out with the tree shears doing some like extreme hedge cutting and stuff. We ran out of battery at the end. Last couple of stumps we had to do, Paul noticed a bit of a problem with the shears. So it's got these tips on it here that deflect the blades, bypass each other. A bit like a pair of secateurs. So those little tips just help make sure that the blades go the right side of each other. Fortunately, this one has tried to eat this one. It's like, Urgh. This blade's kind of dropped or isn't coming on the right angle to bypass, and we found the problem. See these hubs here that the blades bolt to? That one's bent. And not only is it bent, the bottom of the tube here is flared out. Yeah, it's got to that point now, it's just too critical and gone too much, causes big dramas. So what we've got to do is there's a darn great nut here. For scale, that's quite a big nut. So the pin comes down through this, which will be bushed down through that plate, and then through this, which will be bushed to the bottom. But unfortunately, I haven't got a spanner big enough or a socket big enough to go on that big nut. The only thing I've got is comedy size adjustable, but I can't get that in there to turn. So what I do is zip off all these little nuts and bolts around here, take this tree support off the top, and then that'll let me get comedy adjustable and hopefully be able to undo that nut. And when we've done that, there's no saying it's going to be plain sailing. I'm hoping that pin's not bent. You know, this could be relatively easy strip down, bob the new piece in, or it could turn into a whole world of pain. But we'll make a start and see how we get on. This is the big concern now. Can we get that undone and this pin out without any mega drama? I'm guessing that was never going to be that tight, otherwise it'd have too much resistance for it opening and closing, so nut's coming undone anyway. Possibly the biggest nylock nut I've ever seen. That's a whopper. I reckon if we just weld that smaller nut on top of that pin, I can smack that to my heart's content with a sledgehammer. Won't damage the thread. Telehandlers are obviously hugely handy for so many things, but having a little forklift in the workshop, we use this every day without fail. Just take a bit off with the punch. It's a bit flared up at the end. Both ends are a bit mushroom like that, so just ground the edge off. It's not even a proper punch. In fact, I've no idea where it came from, but it must be hellishly hard steel because I've never bent it and it's had loads of grief. It's funny how you get these bits in your toolbox. You don't really ever know where they came from. It wasn't even a proper tool, but it becomes part of your toolkit, which is kind of invaluable. Pin is now knocked out. Now, that swings out the way. So we have these Scorpion Tree Shears from M-Large. I spoke to them, it's fair dues. Parts are out. I ordered them Friday afternoon. Monday morning, first thing, the parcel arrives. So that was really good service. But I was sad to hear that they no longer make these. They came up with these, designed them and were making them themselves, and then I think they outsourced them for a while, and they just can't seem to make it work. Cost of manufacturer, which is a shame. So you can no longer buy these, but they do still carry all the parts for them. And that's the hub. You wouldn't have thought that'd get bent, would you? Shows the force involved cutting trees with an excavator. The hub's actually cracked apart. Unbelievable forces involved in that. Oh, well, that tells a story, doesn't it? Bugger. Do you ever get the feeling you sold something that's still part of research and development? This is very telling. So we ordered the new hub. That's the old one, which has failed. And that's the new one, which is massive by comparison. And of course that doesn't fit through there. So during the evolution of this machine, they realised that that was epoxy and went to that. The pin that goes through it, that's that one, is the same diameter, but the hub is infinitely bigger. And if you look at the pin's bent quite considerably here. Well, that'll have bent because that failed. Today's, we'll fix that in the workshop because I need it out tomorrow, is now not going to happen. Oh, bugger. I need to make some phone calls. We need to get this resolved ASAP. Well, I've just come off the phone to Larges. Now, by all accounts, that does supersede that part. And I've been told we just have to make that hole bigger with a gas torch. Because it's got all those bolts there, then that's fine. Doesn't have to be perfect, just got to make the hole bigger. Yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? Trying to do a nice, right, proper job. This is one of the this was an early machine. This is kind of where the consumer is at the expense of the evolution of the development of the equipment, because obviously they found faults. Frustrating, isn't it? You find a new bit of kit that thinks it's going to be, and it proves that it's not quite where it could be. You know, car manufacturers, I mean, all industries, you know, everything evolves, I get that. But when you buy into something early on, I suppose the price you pay. But if you don't buy into it, then you never can move forward. Absolute catch-22. Massively frustrating, not where I want it to be. As far as the pin goes, they haven't got them in stock. They don't carry them 50mm pins. They've actually moved to a 60mm pin. So not only has the hub got bigger, the pins got bigger. So they've actually done a hub like this now with a 60mm rather than 50mm through. So everything's got stronger. So I'm left with a bent 50mm pin. Hell, that'll take some pressing. We'll go down to the local engineering firm, see whether they can either press that or mill me a new one on the lathe and get us back up and running today. First job, gas axe that and try and get that bolted on. If that works, then we're laughing. If I make a complete balls of that, then it's game over. I'm sure something about if you can draw a perfect circle, it's a sign of a genius. I have no confidence in drawing a perfect circle with a pen, let alone a gas torch. There's probably loads of you watching now going, no, Rick, don't do it like that. Loads of you with much more engineering experience than I've got going, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to make a right hash. But it's the only option I've got if I want to be up and running tomorrow. If it doesn't work, then I guess we're into it for a new blade, or take it up to Baz and Cal at Welder Fabbert and get them to make a repair my mess. Well, I didn't enjoy that very much, but we've got it to fit and the holes all line up. And actually, there's not much play in that. I mean, it's not a perfect circle, but I have surprised myself. I don't think I'd get a job at NASA in their engineering department. However, if you were stuck on the moon and that was what you had to fix to get home and all you got was a set of gas bottles, I guess you'd give it a go, wouldn't you? Happy days. Woohoo! It's like a sauna. It's kind of nice, a bit like a sauna, isn't it? Talking of saunas, yeah, the Germans are big into saunas, aren't they? Agritechnica's coming up soon, isn't it? Don't know whether we'll get a chance to go or not. Of course, because they've made the plate thicker and stronger, the bolts don't fit anymore. I'm going to get some more bolts. I'm going to take that pin and see whether I can find someone that's better at straightening stuff than I am at cutting circular holes. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be that bothered. You know, we'd just order some new parts, bits and bats, put it together, delay the job a week if we had to. But I don't want to let this client down. So Hannah, if you're watching, all of today's mither is for you. Yeah, we don't want to let the client down. We want to get this job done. So I want to get this up and running today. That is my mission. So when I can't fix things myself, I mither Andrew. And he's confident Then you can straighten the pin rather than having to make a new one. We don't have this sort of kit in our workshop. That's bloody marvellous. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it straightening. Bloody hell. How much force is that putting on then?
Well, when you pump it by hand, 50 tons.
This is amazing, John. Absolutely amazing. Jane, if you're watching this, Christmas time's coming. 8 weeks to Christmas. This is on my list. How good's that? So just keep twiddling it round, finding the little high spot, straight pin. Chuffed to bits with that. That was easy. All we've got to do now, down to Threadfast Congleton, pick up some new bolts, because of that hub's a bit thicker. Back in business. This is one we definitely couldn't do without. Threadfast in Congleton. If you're local, you'll already know about it. If you don't know about it, this is in Laddin's Cave. Probably one of the handiest shops in Cheshire. Behold, everything to do with fixings and tools. Those, please.
How many?
What I need is 8 of those. A couple more of those big washers. Yeah. Sorry, that's greasy as you look like me. But they need to be like a nylock longer, if that makes sense. Yes, basically, the plate, what I'm going through is now thicker than what it was. It's so good. I don't know how many boxes of nuts and bolts they've got. It's amazing. Well, that was a really successful journey. So they've sorted us out a treat. Both places I've been to, so Andrew Hardman sorted that out nicely. This big greasy pin. That's a nice thing about having 2 great big dogs, a German Shepherd and a Doberman. You get lots of dog food bags, which are really handy for putting greasy stuff in when you put it in the back of your truck. Nice. So, I'll bolt all this back together now. So the camera ran out of battery before I finished in the workshop yesterday when I was mending these tree shears. Anyway, we're on site today. Just picked the excavator up from the last job we were on where you've seen us with a big chipper. Come to another site now where we're going to cut some other stuff down. I'll show you that in a minute. So the battery went off before I finished putting the shears together. It turned into a bit more of a drama than anticipated. So it turns out this plate here and that plate there slightly deflected from the stress of it being used over the years, which meant this big long pin I couldn't get in. It was just pushing at an angle. I couldn't get it all the way through. And I had to have a bit of a chat with myself because I was getting a little bit frustrated. And I realised the only way it was going to happen was to align this plate. Tried heating it, didn't work. So I ended up cutting out all the way around that boss with a gas axe, just leaving it slightly attached so we could realign it, get the pin back through, and then weld it all back up again, on top and underneath. And after I sort of got my head together, it all went back swimmingly. So I'm hoping now that it all works and functions properly. Nervousness is blade alignment between the two, that comes and forms a nice bypass cut. The digger wasn't at the yard, so I couldn't try it. So we're going to unload now, put it on, and see whether we've fixed it. Right, you'll just notice there that just slacking a couple of couplings off, let a bit of pressure off. This electronic diverter on the top of the crowd, you can't really get the pressure off it very easily unless it's just left for a while. So just crack them off, let the pressure off, we're all piped up. Right, we'll give her a whirl, see whether those shears are going to bypass each other properly. I'll keep the revs low. Can't see from the cab very well, but it looks to me, like that's a success. Oh yeah, they're coming past each other beautifully, nice and tight on the blade still. Excellent, we're good to go. I'll just explain what we're doing here. It's been a hell of a mast year this year. You see all these hawthorn berries? Absolutely smothered in them, the trees this year. And these berries are actually full of hawthorn seed. There's a seed there. So what we're going to do, this may look really destructive. And Evie, if you're watching, this isn't destroying habitat, this is making new habitat. I'll explain why. We're going to shear off all this overgrown hedge. We're going to coppice it down. There's a fence in the way, so we can't take it right to ground level, but we're going to cut it down to about 3 foot high. And that will all regenerate. All the roots are going to be intact. It's the right time of year now, we're well into October. And by cutting all that off, next year, that will all regrow. And it'll recreate this over the next 20 years. It'll recreate what we've got here already. We'll take that material, we're going to collect it all up, and we're going to distribute it over the site. So there are areas of the grassland which are getting restored into species-rich, high botanic interest grassland. And there want to be elements of scrub within that. It's going to get grazed thereafter once it's fully established. So to establish the scrub areas, which would be really good for all sorts of wildlife, rather than just planting small hawthorn plants and dog rose and blackthorn and hazel, we're going to let nature do some of that. We are going to supplementary plant it, but we're going to let nature do some of that work for us. And we think this is going to be hopefully a much more successful way of establishing the scrubland quicker. So by cutting this material off, putting it in little piles across the site where we're going to create the scrub areas, it'll create a habitat pile. We've got all the food in there, all these hawthorn berries and rose hips and blackthorn berries, the sloes, all that will provide food for birds. So little birds are going to come in there, they'll eat those berries, and they're going to sit about, after they've eaten, they're going to do bird poos. And that's going to pass the seeds through into the area underneath the scrub. We'll also get small mammals, mice and voles, shrews. They're going to come in and utilise that habitat as well. Some of those species will start caching material. So they might be hiding and burying berries and fruit and nuts. And all that will just accelerate that natural process of scrub creation. But we think this is going to be a really interesting way of really kick-starting the ecosystem, of getting this scrubland area that can then be lightly grazed with the beef cattle. It's like a real sort of mosaic habitat of interesting species-rich grassland, the scrub elements. We've got a few other little tricks we're going to show you through the project as well, so stick around, because some of these big hedges that are overgrown, they're going to start forming some of the backbone of these scrub encroachment areas. And we'll show you a few little interesting tips of how we're going to achieve that alongside the brash piling. You see, in a relatively short space of time, we've harvested a load of material. Now, I know there'll be loads of you thinking, it's the end of October, it's coming up to bonfire night, that'll make a great bonfire. This has a much greater purpose. You imagine in here now, this is going to be put out like this, in these various scrub areas. Fantastic habitat, small mammals, birds, they're going to have a field day in there, there's loads of food, loads of cover. Come spring, they can start nesting, and these birds will be coming back and the small mammals back into these areas, depositing seeds that they've eaten, as well as some of the berries and stuff falling out of the material that's already here. I think it's going to be really, really successful. Predominantly, we've got a lot of ivy in here, rose hips, hawthorn. We're going to get some blackthorn from further over on the other side of the site, and as I say, then we'll do some scrub planting around it. Whilst it looks a bit brutal, I'm not taking all the material. We're leaving some of that on the back side of the ditch, which I could reach over and get, but we don't want to absolutely clatter the landscape of this area. You know, we want this feature and this to recover and grow back up again. The hedge that we've just effectively coppiced off, that'll put 3 or 4 foot of growth back up out of it. The ivy was starting to choke it, putting a load of wind pressure on the root structure of the old hedge. So eventually the whole thing would have just collapsed in itself anyway. So that'll give it a whole new lease of life. It can all grow back up again. And there's still loads of habitat left down here along the verge side. What's been a great success is my mend on the shears yesterday. I was pleased I battled through and stuck with it. We sharpened them while I was at it as well, so it's making a lovely clean cut. And the shears are just coming, bypassing each other really tightly, giving a really nice fine tight cut to the material. Really nice and sharp. That's great. It is massive, isn't it? Absolutely huge. It's a proper pair of shears, that. What we've achieved down here in the last hour, that'd be a real miserable day's work for 3 people. In fact, I think 3 people are struggling to get that done in a day. And you have a hell of a lot of scratches.